today I'm going to be attempting to make my own moss pole for my monstera plant. This is the first time that I'm doing this and is a complete experiment, but I thought it would be nice to take you along on the journey and see how simple or tricky it is to make these, and hopefully if it turns out well then this will be beneficial to any of you who want to make your own moss pole too. Moss poles are needed for a specific type of houseplant where in their natural environment they will grow by attaching themselves onto other trees. So you may know that you can buy moss poles in garden centres and similar stores, but we're currently in lockdown and all of the garden centres are closed. So I just wanted to see if there was a cheaper and more sustainable way to make these moss poles that are essential for these types of houseplants. So that's what I'm going to attempt today. We are going on an adventure, an isolation adventure, to find moss. Let's see what we can find. To be honest, I have no idea if we're going to find any here, but it seems like a good spot. I think we may have found some. Success! Got a lot of moss. This is the monstera that I will be creating the moss pole for. You can see that already the leaves are kind of really drooping down, which is why the moss pole is needed, because they can then be attached up like this. I've just got some green wire which I can use to attach the moss. I've got my knife just to cut. I've got this which is just green twine. This is the pole that I'm going to use for the moss pole. So this is just something that we had in the shed. And then this is the moss that I foraged earlier. So first of all, I'm actually just going to get the pieces of moss and just kind of shake them out a little bit. Make sure that there's no bugs in here. Obviously, as it's an indoor plant, we don't want to bring any insects inside, and also just shake off any kind of excess soil. Take your pole and measure it to where it's going to fit into the soil, about there. Because from this section of it doesn't need moss on it because that's going to be in the soil, so you know not to cover that part. So I'm just putting a little piece of green wire around that point, and then all you need to do is get your pieces of moss and just start placing it onto the pole. You want to hold it on quite tight and have quite a large amount. Just hold it tight onto the pole. Then get your string and just gently start to wrap it around, holding the moss in place. And I'm just gently taking it piece by piece. Obviously, if you've foraged your moss like I have, then some pieces are going to be a lot smaller than others, but you want to make sure it's tight on there, and then just wrap your twine around. I only had green twine, which to be honest I think is fine, but it's just to be wary that if you want a neat look and you can see your twine, then just make sure you're wrapping it around in a uniform way. But I think it's fine. If you've got small sections to cover, that's where you can use your smaller pieces.
This is the last time. Be free. Someone take the chains off me, 'cause I should be happy on my own. You can do this. Scared to shoot 'cause you might miss. Didn't know your touch was my again.
I have reached the end of where I tied that wire, so now I'm just going to tie the twine to secure it in place. Wind it around a few times into a nice knot so that it doesn't come undone. Just want to ensure that this is really tight. You don't want the moss to be coming off. So that is the whole pole. You can see that I've covered all of it with moss except this last section which is going into the pot. I'm going to go over it in a few sections with the twine again, just because you can see places like this where the moss is just a bit loose. So I'm just going to do an extra layer around bits like that just to make it sure it's really secure. I've now reached the bottom again. You can see that the moss is a lot tighter around the pole, which should just mean that it stays more more securely in place. I'm going to try to do it by just removing a bit of the soil and then putting it into the middle and then packing the soil around it again. I don't want to take all of the soil out and then completely put it all back, because sometimes that can really stress the plant out. So I'm going to try and keep it intact as much as possible and just add the pole in. And then just gently kind of feed it in. You want to keep it to the center of the pot as much as possible, which will ensure that your plant will grow straight too. So you kind of just want to gently feed it in. By doing it this way, you can also feel around for where the roots are to ensure that you're not breaking them. Can be a bit tricky, but just take your time. The moss pole needs to sit right at the bottom of the pot to ensure it's as secure as possible. So it's reached the bottom. You just want to pack the soil back around. Just make sure it's evenly distributed down firmly. And then the whole idea of these moss poles is obviously that the plant can grow up it. So once your moss pole is in place, then all you want to do is kind of gather the leaves and see how you want them to grow. So the stems need to be straight up the pole, and you can kind of just organize the leaves the best way that they can be to grow straight up the pole. All you need to do is secure those leaves. So I just use the green gardening wire, which just secures them in place. Obviously you don't want to tie this too tight, but it's really good for helping the leaves. And I love this stuff because even though it is plastic coated, I reuse it all the time. So I've got actually all of these older ones here, which when the plants need it, you can just untie it, move it to where it needs to be adjusted to, and then use it again. So it's great. You can see here how I've just gently attached the wire around all of these leaves, and then this bit you can just tuck behind, and it's all green, so you know it blends in if you're worried about aesthetics. And that's it, that's my moss pole done. The process was a lot simpler than I thought, to be honest. It took some time, but that was absolutely fine for me. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful and informative. Let me know your thoughts, and also if you have any questions at all, just let me know in the comments below.